Rachel was one of 3 friends who gathered at Amanda Cowley's upscale home in a quiet Florida suburb on an otherwise ordinary Thursday morning in August 2015. They had come to support Amanda as she struggled through the breakdown of her marriage. Rachel could never have imagined that, shortly after arriving, she would be hiding inside a closet, begging for her life. She was shot in the arm, but somehow managed to escape. Amanda and their other friend were not so fortunate. Lindy Dobbins was shot 3 times. Amanda herself was shot 9 times. Their lives were cut short in a horrifying act of violence. Both women left behind young children. 2 families were shattered. But why? What could have led to such a brutal attack in a peaceful residential neighborhood? Before we continue, if you're into true crime stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I bring you some of the most gripping and disturbing true crime cases. And there are plenty more stories coming, and I'd really like to hear from you. So leave your thoughts in the comments below. Your comments, likes, and subscriptions really help support the channel. Alright, let's get back to the story. This is the tragic story of Amanda Cowley, a woman for whom protection from the legal system came far too late. Amanda lived in the family home in the Mirabella community of St. Augustine, Florida. It was a beautiful, upscale neighborhood that Amanda and her husband, James Cowley Jr., had chosen as an idyllic place to raise their children. Mirabella was promoted as offering a resort-like lifestyle close to home, and from the outside, the Cowleys appeared to be living exactly that kind of picture-perfect Florida life. Neighbors remembered James playing hide-and-seek with the couple's children, Trey, who was 6 years old in 2015, and Avery, who was 4. The family appeared close-knit and sociable. Amanda and James often invited neighbors over for drinks and hosted parties at their home. Even when their marriage began to fall apart, the separation seemed, at least from the outside, relatively calm. Whatever was really happening behind closed doors remained hidden from those around them. And that was why the events of August 27, 2015, came as such a devastating shock to the entire neighborhood. At around 9 o'clock that morning, Rachel Hendricks learned that something was going on with her friend Amanda. Rachel and Amanda had been friends for several years after meeting at a party hosted by mutual friends. Together with Lindy Dobbins, they had become a close-knit trio. They helped one another with their children, spent time together at the neighborhood pool, and, whenever one of them was struggling, the others were there to offer support. So when Amanda needed her friends that morning, it was only natural that Lindy and Rachel would be there for her. Earlier that day, Rachel had dropped her children off at school. Afterward, she went to see a friend who was a hairstylist to get her hair cut. Were you ever told that something was going on at Amanda's house? Yes. And who told you that? Lindy. After leaving the hair salon, Rachel headed over to Amanda's home. I went inside. I walked over to Amanda and Lindy. Amanda was crying. I just wrapped my arms around her and told her everything was going to be okay. Then I saw the house. Everything had been turned upside down. Amanda's normally immaculate home in Mirabella had been ransacked overnight while she was away. When she returned at around 9 o'clock that morning, she found the house in complete disarray. A disturbing sight for anyone coming home. But this didn't look like an ordinary burglary. Nothing appeared to have been stolen. Instead, drawers and belongings had been searched through and tossed down, almost as though whoever had entered the house had been looking for something specific. Perhaps Amanda already understood just how much danger she was in. That may have been why she asked several people she trusted to come over, believing there would be safety in numbers. But there wouldn't be. There were 4 people inside the house that morning: Amanda, Lindy, Rachel, and Lamar Doberly. Lamar was Amanda's boyfriend. Amanda had officially divorced her husband, James, in June. She had first met Lamar in April. Our relationship started out professionally, and then it developed into something personal. We began dating in June of 2015. Lamar had an extensive military background. He had studied at the United States Naval Academy and Marine Corps University, and had also worked at the Pentagon. He was ambitious and driven, and he met Amanda when they were both working in corporate management at FIC, a sportswear company. As Amanda's marriage fell apart, she and Lamar became closer. After the separation, their relationship became romantic. So when Amanda returned home that Thursday morning and discovered that someone had gone through her belongings and left the house in chaos, Lamar was one of the people she called. Lamar, Lindy, and Rachel came to comfort Amanda and help her feel safe inside her own home again. Amanda showed them the damage throughout the house. Later, Lamar took Rachel to see the damage in the garage, while Amanda and Lindy remained upstairs talking, shaken by what they had seen. Lamar and Rachel eventually returned to the living room. Neither of them realized that the nightmare was only beginning. I was standing in the living room when suddenly I heard glass shatter. There was this small explosion, almost like a popping sound. I looked outside, and I saw Mr. Cowley standing in the backyard. He had a gun in his hand, and he was aiming it toward the living room. The gunman was none other than James Cowley, Amanda's ex-husband. He was standing outside the home that had once been their family home, firing at Rachel and Lamar through the glass. One of the shots shattered the window. At first, the sound was so unexpected that they struggled to understand what was happening. I tried to figure out what was going on. I said, "What the hell was that?" And he said, "Those are gunshots." Lamar later recalled where he had been standing when the shooting began. "I was standing roughly in this area. I heard a pop, but it didn't really sound like a gunshot at first. Then I noticed the first bullet hole. The second bullet hole appeared much closer to where I was standing. James was firing from the backyard. He appeared furious, repeatedly shouting the same question. Where is he? Where is he?" Lamar quickly realized that James, Amanda's ex-husband, was looking for him. Lamar was Amanda's new boyfriend, and if James had come to the house in a jealous rage, as Lamar believed was likely, then he knew he was in immediate danger. James had a gun, and he had already shown that he was willing to use it. I thought I was the target, and I wasn't armed, so I ran. Lamar shouted for everyone to get out. He escaped through the garage, slipping underneath the garage door before running between two houses, and making his way toward the end of the cul-de-sac. But Amanda and Lindy were farther from the exit. With nowhere else to go, they fled toward the master bedroom. Rachel ran there as well. Amanda hid in the bathroom, while Rachel and Lindy took cover inside the walk-in closet. I braced my foot against the door and kept my left hand on the doorknob. Lindy crouched behind a dresser inside the master closet, while Rachel desperately tried to keep the closet door shut. Meanwhile, James entered the house. If Lamar was the person he was looking for, James apparently didn't realize that Lamar had already escaped. Gun in hand, he made his way upstairs. I could hear Mr. Cowley talking to Amanda in the bathroom. Meanwhile, Lindy called 911. The call came in at 10:36 that morning. The women were now trapped inside the house, and James was furious. He continued yelling at Amanda, demanding to know where Lamar was. He apparently had no idea that Lamar was already gone, and that the only people left inside were Amanda and her two friends. Amanda insisted that she didn't know where Lamar was. She was extremely distressed and crying, "He's not here. I don't know. He's not here." At some point, Rachel heard James approach the closet and try to open the door. Amanda told him Lamar wasn't inside. "Rachel and Lindy are in there," she said. And then Rachel heard a gunshot. After that, she could no longer hear Amanda. Terrified, Rachel remained hidden inside the closet with Lindy, who was still on the phone with 911. Neither woman knew exactly what had just happened to Amanda. All they knew was that James was inside the house with a gun. apparently seeking revenge against a man who was no longer there, Lamar Doberly. What would James do once he realized that Lamar had already escaped? Mr. Cowley was trying to get into the closet, yelling, "Open the door! Open the door, or I'll shoot!" Then he fired through the door, and the bullet struck my arm. Terrified for her life and in pain from the gunshot wound, Rachel finally backed away from the door, allowing James to force it open. But James seemed to have no interest in Rachel. He moved past her and went straight toward Lindy, who was down on her knees. I heard Lindy say, "Oh my God, no." Then I ran out of the closet, and I heard a gunshot. Rachel fled the house, desperately searching for help. She eventually managed to take shelter at the home of a mutual friend. Lamar, meanwhile, encountered someone else nearby who also called 911, but by the time police arrived, James Cowley Jr. had already fled, leaving a devastating scene behind him. Rachel had been shot in the arm. Lamar, fortunately, was physically unharmed, but Lindy and Amanda were dead. Lindy had been shot 3 times. Amanda had been shot 9 times. James had shot Amanda once before forcing his way into the walk-in closet, where Lindy and Rachel were hiding. After killing Lindy, he returned to Amanda and shot her 8 more times. He initially fired 3 shots at Amanda with a 9mm handgun. When that weapon ran out of ammunition, he switched to a .45 caliber handgun he had brought with him as a backup. The sheer brutality of the attack revealed a terrifying level of rage he felt toward his former wife. But why had he been so determined to find Lamar? Was it simply jealousy over Amanda's new relationship? And how had everything reached such a horrifying point? To understand how this tragedy unfolded, we have to look back at Amanda and James's marriage. Relatively little is publicly known about the early years of their relationship. In 2015, Amanda was 36 years old, 1 year older than James. She had been born in Orlando, Florida, and had built a successful professional life surrounded by a wide circle of friends. James, too, appeared to live an ordinary and successful life. He worked in the mortgage industry and, from the outside, seemed to have built a comfortable life with his wife and children. His sister, Crystal, described him as a devoted father. From the moment he woke up until the moment he went to bed, he spent his time with his children. He taught them how to swim. But behind the image of a loving father was a darker side, and a troubled family history. Was there ever a time when your mother became violent toward your father in James's presence? Yes. Tell us what happened. There was a time when my father had an affair. Someone called my mother and told her about it. I saw her sitting on the stairs with a baseball bat. My mother started hitting my father with the bat. Then, on another occasion, my mother came to our house for Thanksgiving to see us. She and my father got into another argument. My father wasn't going to let her into the house, and my mother grabbed a knife. James had witnessed his mother's violent reaction to his father's infidelity. He had seen the conflict escalate to the point where she physically attacked his father, right in front of him. His defense would later point to experiences like these when discussing the possible psychological impact of his childhood. But whatever role his past may have played, one fact remained. By the time of the murders on August 27, 2015, James and Amanda were already separated and their marriage was over. They had been living apart for months. James was also seeing another woman. The deadly attack that morning was not an isolated outburst. It was the horrifying culmination of a pattern of escalating aggression toward Amanda, a woman who had been trying to break free from an increasingly toxic marriage. James showed an extreme and disproportionate jealousy over Lamar's presence in Amanda's life, even though his marriage to Amanda had already ended. Several months before the murders, a neighbor sent James a photograph of Lamar mowing Amanda's lawn without a shirt on. James reacted with fury. He began bombarding Amanda with abusive text messages and voicemails, a pattern that continued right up until the day she was killed. In one message, he wrote, "Oh, and your boyfriend parks by the playground and walks over. The whole neighborhood knows about it. You should just have him park in the driveway like a real man. Yeah, everyone knows who you are. Don't worry. I'll talk to him personally as soon as possible." Amanda responded, "He's not my boyfriend. Like I've already told you. He's helping me around the house, painting, moving furniture, things like that." James replied, "Then why doesn't he park in the driveway unless he's hiding something? And I think he's married. Yeah, I have a picture of him." The messages carried an unmistakably threatening undertone, and there was reason for Amanda to take those threats seriously. A domestic violence injunction had already been issued against James, and he had already violated it. On one occasion, he took Amanda's clothes from the house and burned them outside. In fact, James had appeared in court over that violation on the morning of August 27th. Witnesses described him as calm and composed. Less than an hour later, Amanda and her friend Lindy would be dead. James's behavior toward Amanda could shift dramatically from one moment to the next. Just one day before the murders, on August 26th, he sent her another message. "Please try to forgive me so we can move forward. I miss you and our family so much, the way we were when we were together." But that seemingly apologetic message was followed only hours later by another deeply disturbing act. At around 4 o'clock a.m. on August 27th, James broke into Amanda's home, apparently searching for proof that she was involved with another man. Inside, he found what he believed was that proof, including sex toys and men's clothing. Enraged, he tore through the house, searching Amanda's belongings and leaving rooms in complete disarray. This was the scene Amanda discovered when she returned home at around 9 o'clock that morning, and it helps explain why she immediately reached out to people she trusted, including Rachel and Lindy, asking them to come over. That same day, after ransacking her home, James sent Amanda another message. "You're amazing. Don't take my kids away from me. They're all I have. Call me, or I'll come find you." It would become one of his final exchanges with Amanda before he killed her, and his threat to come find her would soon become a reality. Amanda did call James at around 9:41 a.m., roughly 10 minutes after he left the courthouse. The two had a heated argument over the phone, but the call did nothing to stop him. After leaving the courthouse, James drove to a gas station and then stopped at his sister's house. He later returned to the same gas station to fuel up before heading directly toward Amanda's home. Somewhere along the way, he obtained weapons and ammunition. By the time he arrived at Amanda's house, he was armed with 2 handguns, a 9mm and a .45 caliber pistol. While driving, James called his father. His father was outside when he answered the phone, and a neighbor who happened to be walking her dog nearby overheard part of the conversation. According to her, James's father was pleading with his son. "Please, son, come back and get your truck. Everyone knows it was you who went through the house." Then she heard the man on the other end of the phone respond, "I just can't take this anymore." At that point, James was approaching Amanda's home. He parked on a nearby street and made his way toward the house from the rear, apparently trying to avoid being seen. But any attempt at caution disappeared the moment he opened fire through the living room window. At Rachel and Lamar, James had arrived with a deadly purpose, and by the time he left, 2 women would be dead. After killing Lindy and Amanda, James fled the scene, but there were 2 surviving witnesses. Lamar had escaped without injury, while Rachel had suffered a gunshot wound to her arm. Police knew exactly who they were looking for, and an urgent manhunt began. James was found later that same night in Norton, Virginia. His capture came after another driver called 911 to report a terrifying encounter with a man whose reckless driving had nearly forced her off the road. He stopped right in the middle of the road. I had to stop, too. Then he came at me. I couldn't even. My kids are terrified. My mom had to sit in the back seat of my car just to calm them down. They're scared. And I have a newborn who only weighs 4 pounds. Norton police eventually stopped James in his vehicle. Inside, officers found multiple firearms. When they ran his information, they discovered that he was wanted in connection with the murders in Florida. James Cowley Jr. was arrested. He would ultimately face a long list of charges, including the first-degree murders of Amanda Cowley and Lindy Dobbins, the attempted first-degree murders of Rachel Hendricks and Lamar Doberly, burglary-related charges, and aggravated stalking following the issuance of a domestic violence injunction. At trial, the defense argued that the attack had not been premeditated. Instead, they claimed James had been in an extreme emotional and altered mental state, potentially influenced by sleeping medication, alcohol, or other substances. A psychiatrist for the defense also testified that James suffered from parasomnia, a sleep disorder involving abnormal behavior during sleep, sometimes compared to sleepwalking. But there was a major problem with that argument. James had appeared in court earlier that same day, only about an hour and a half before the murders. During that hearing, he denied being under the influence of any intoxicating substances. He also appeared capable of understanding what was happening and responding rationally to the proceedings involving the injunction. That seriously undermined a later claim that alcohol, drugs, or sleeping medication taken the night before had left him in an altered state of consciousness. There was also video evidence that appeared to contradict the defense's version of events. Ultimately, the jury unanimously found James Cowley Jr. guilty on all counts. The jurors also unanimously recommended that he receive the death penalty, based on 4 aggravating circumstances they found had been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Among them was the fact that James had committed multiple violent felonies as part of the same criminal episode, including 2 murders and attempted murders. The killings were also committed during the course of a burglary. The jury found each murder to be especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel, and they concluded that the murders were committed in a cold, calculated, and premeditated manner. The medical examiner's testimony revealed another horrifying detail. Amanda had remained alive as the violence continued inside the house. She was shot 9 times before she died. It was an extraordinarily brutal crime, one that destroyed 2 families and left lasting trauma for everyone who survived it. In November 2018, James Cowley Jr. was sentenced to death. James appealed his conviction, but in 2020, his sentence was upheld. He remains on death row. Amanda's 2 children are now being raised by their grandparents, while Lindy Dobbins' 3 children, who were 16, 10, and 9 years old at the time of her murder, remained with their father. And that brings us to the end of this tragic case. What do you think about what happened to Amanda Cowley and Lindy Dobbins? Do you believe James's attack could have been prevented, especially considering the warning signs and escalating behavior that came before it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this story worth hearing, please subscribe to Midnight Crime Story and leave a like. Your support really helps the channel grow and allows us to continue bringing you more true crime stories. Until next time, stay safe and take care of the people you love.